Sorry, guys, I don't have my pom-poms today.
I was going to say happy 4th of July Eve to those that are in the States.
Woo!
Woohoo! Um,
Happy belated Canada Day.
yes, happy belated Canada Day. If you're up in, if you're one of our Canadian friends, welcome. This is LinkedIn Rockstar Academy. And of course, I'm joined with my lovely co-host Shel Shapiro, and we are going to talk all things about profiles tonight and igniting your profile. Happy belated. That would be the me hitting the volume on so that I can see the chat. So live, folks. This is what happens live. So I like to keep an eye on the chat in real time. So on my phone, just FYI. So, but welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be interested to see our audience because obviously holiday weekend and people going away and whatnot. But Shell, introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself a little bit more, and then let's just dive into the conversation.
Yeah. Hey, I'm your LinkedIn cheerleader, although I don't have any pom-poms with me today. Hoping that my computer holds up situations. So if I suddenly disappear, I will be back. I promise. Again, I am affectionately your LinkedIn. Is I help you show up and engage on LinkedIn on this platform in a way that feels aligned to you, that feels safe for you, that feels true to you, and where you feel encouraged and supported to keep showing up as your authentic self. So we just wrapped up Personal Branding Month, and that laid the foundation to head into what we're now really excited about for Profile Optimization Month, so that we can bring your best self forward and help you show up more effectively. So I'm excited for this conversation. I'm excited for this entire month, actually, because I think so many people miss the opportunity here with not taking their personal branding and optimizing their profile effectively.
Yeah, and for those who don't know me, I'm Melanie Mitchell Wexler. I am a career coach. I'm also a LinkedIn strategist. So I help you understand how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, but also how to use LinkedIn so that you can be found, seen, and heard. And so I work with professionals, not just job seekers, but all levels of professionals from your executive level through entrepreneurs, consultants. There is an audience here for everybody on this platform. And your profile is either bringing you the leads and it's either bringing you the connections that you're looking for or it's not. It's usually there's not an in between. So and so every single month of the rest of this year, we're dedicating one to our two LinkedIn lives, which you're here for today. We are dedicating a specific topic, as Shell mentioned, and this month it is all about profiles. So we've officially started the 7th month of 2025. Not here to scare you, but I
Where
have
did the time
no
go?
clue. I do kind of wish time would slow down. I could go off on an entirely different topic about time that I read today, but I won't. So I'll save you guys on that about how we view time and things of that nature. But that being said, now is a great time to invest in yourself and invest in your LinkedIn profile. And I say that because sometimes we let our foot off the brake during the summer, and absolutely you should take the Shell right now is vacationing, but she took a little bit of a break to come and join us. And you should always enjoy yourself. You should always take a break, take a rest period 100%. But now is the time to get your profile lined up with what your goals are. Get that lined up in terms of the direction that you're looking for and your personal brand. So one of the things that we do in our masterclass intensives is when we're tackling profiles, we break down the profiles in literally step by step by step so that you walk away with understanding. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. So Shell, where should we jump in at?
Well, I think there's we usually tackle, like, we spend a lot of banner, the headline. Um, Before we even sessions before, you know how much time we've spent on the banner and the headline. But before we even get there, like, even a moment ago, when I was like, "Oof, where did the time go?" If that was also your reaction, then and you're feeling like your profile is not converting into conversations, or you're getting crickets, or like you're just like, where did the months go, like, and what have I spent my time on? Like, you're in the right place. I just want to reassure you, like, you're here at, for all the, we're all here for the purpose of becoming LinkedIn rock stars. And so if that was you a moment ago along with me, then I'm thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up and deciding, yeah, I'm going to take this month to optimize my profile too. So where we can go with the conversation as far as profile optimization is, especially if you're feeling like you're an overlooked asset, uh, go back and think about for a minute, how, when we were talking about personal branding last month and over the last few weeks, what was it in your mind that you identified of, like, here's how I want to show up, here's what I want people to know about me, whether they see me in the feed, whether I come up in a profile, what is that thing that I want people to know about me? And I want you to take, and maybe you could even drop it in the chat. What is that thing that you identified that you really want to be known for? I'm going to pause for a second while I wait for you to go think about it and type it in the chat.
Drop it in the chat. I also put a question in the chat for you so you can answer Shell's question first. We got lots of questions for you folks, to make to.
I think they
They do
relate to each
relate.
other,
So
because once you know that.
they do relate, and I think it's important. So there is a lot of, and Shell and I've actually had a conversation about this. I'm trying to figure out where we actually kind of put, maybe do a special LinkedIn Live on this particular topic. But there is a lot of people right now saying how LinkedIn sucks. Now, I'm not saying that LinkedIn gods, okay? I'm not putting that out there for you, but I'm just sharing with what we see in the feeds and things like that, because obviously we talk a lot about LinkedIn. So I'm not going to say there obviously is, there's negative to any social media platform. Let me just put it that way. However, LinkedIn doesn't have to suck for you. And I'm going to tell you why, because it starts with your profile. Okay. It starts with your profile. And I just had this conversation with a client this past week where we were talking about our profile, and I forget what specific thing it was, but I literally saw the light bulb like click in her head about, like, oh, that's what I should be doing. That's why people aren't coming there. Because the reality is this: people could find you using your LinkedIn profile. And if your profile doesn't align with who you say you are and what you do, guess what happens, folks? They move on. They don't communicate with you. They don't connect with you. They don't have any type of communication. So I think that's the thing, is people want to complain about the platform but aren't doing the work that they, or maybe not, I don't want to say not doing the work, but don't understand the work that needs to be taken place in order to achieve your goals. So let's break this down a little bit. And you know what? Let's just kind of, I go through, one of the things that we do in our master classes, go through, I've actually, and I do this in my own coaching too, but I've got 22 points. We're not going to get to all 22 points today, folks. I am narrowing some of these down. Some of them are minor things. But one of the things that we are always doing is looking at what are the major things you should be looking at on your platform, or on your profile. So that being said, we're going to just kind of touch on a few things. But if you have specific questions for us, drop them in the chat. Let us know. We'll be happy to answer them. If you have, want us to look at your profile or give you some feedback, let us know as well. We're happy to do that. And yeah, we'll get started go ahead and get started in terms of let's talk about this. So, and Doris mentioned continuously polishing her profile. It's never done. That is absolutely right, Doris. Thank you for that comment, because it isn't it is always a work in progress. We are changing, our businesses are changing, our careers are changing, and so should our LinkedIn profile. So, that being said, let's just talk about the banner photo. This is the thing that we bless you.
Thank
Um,
you. Could not contain it.
this is the thing that people forget to do, don't know what to do with it. It is probably, in my opinion, the most overwhelming action item for people to do, because they feel like they have to be, a designer, a graphic designer. I'm like, that's not web design. Like, can't think of the word. But they feel like they have to be a graphic designer. When you're coaching, Shell, what is something, how do you coach people on updating their banner photos?
Well, weirdly, I think my comment to Doris is going to post twice now, but that's neither here nor there. When I talk to people about updating their banner photos, there's usually two different ways that I let them approach it. And it's not, my way is not the best way necessarily. I give you a variety of options, and then we find the way that works best for you. So the easy one, and I say easy because, like, less thought, in my opinion, is to take some of the keywords that you've now hopefully identified that you want to be known for, especially if you've gone through the personal branding portions of it. You know what your goals are here. You know what you want people to know about you. You know how you have a pretty good idea, hopefully, of how you want to show up and what you want to achieve. And you can start taking some of those things that you want to be known for, drop them into Google. Okay, you know how geeky I get when it comes to search engines, and I'm telling you to use Google for this one. Drop a keyword into Google, click the little images tab at the top, and see what kind of images come up. Now, you could literally, I'm not suggesting you pay for any stock images. I find a free one that works for you. If some of your keywords are not working, try others. There's so many different ways to just put a keyword in and find something that relates to the work that you want to do more of or what you want to be known for. Again, I think this is the easier one of the two because it doesn't require as much effort on your end. The more in-depth answer to that is maybe you use Canva, and you use one of their templates. Again, you do not need to have a paid version of Canva. You can use the free version. They've still got so many free templates. They've even got images that you can drag and drop and do something similar. Keyword search what you want to be known for, and see what kind of templates come up, or see what kind of images come up that you can drag into their templates. You could even take Google images that you found and drag those into the templates. So you could have the bare bones Google searched image. You could import it into a template. You could use one of Canva's templates that they already have. You could use some of their images. You want to take that to another layer. Again, any of these versions is better than having that blank or not applicable to the things that you want to be known for. Add text to that layout. There's different levels. How far are you willing to go, or what are you willing to do in order to really have that be your billboard and start, telling the story of what you want to be known for?
And I'm going to take this even a step further and bring you back to LinkedIn here, because this is Sheldon's gave me a really good idea on this. So, but first off, you don't have to have text. Now, I often love to have a good tagline. To be honest, I do love a good tagline, but sometimes an image is strong enough. I just did a client's profile, software engineer, working for a very large large organization. And he honestly, he had a really strong profile. I mean, like, I honestly would use him as like my guinea pig of like, look what this man is doing. I mean, he had featured sections. I think he was creating some content. There were things that he was missing that he wasn't taking advantage of or could take to the next level. And so knowing that your profile, everybody's profile is at a different level. So even in that example, I may work with somebody that we are literally, I saw Jay's comment look like a Darwin graphic of a man's evolution when his profile first started. Um, so your profile is always going to be at different levels. And one of the things, honestly, he had a strong image. It conveyed what he does. He is in the cybersecurity space, the software engineering space, and truthfully, I didn't touch it because it didn't need to be. I also do not reinvent the wheel. So like literally, if there's a strong image, unless like we just really want to make changes, I don't necessarily think we have to. But I told him that I said, hey, I would be happy to come up with a few taglines. I don't necessarily think you need it because your profile, the image I land on it, it screams to me what you do, and that it's not a searchable field. So, but it is a graphic, and graphic we respond differently to graphics. Now, to Shell's point, where you Google this, guess what you can also do? You can take this to LinkedIn and put in those keywords and see what other people. I'm not saying copy verbatim, but see what other people in your field are doing. Now, this is where Shell's point is going to need to come into play. I don't have a statistic, but it will feel like 90% of the people in your field do not have a banner photo for you to look at. They probably don't. I don't know if that's an exact statistic, but it honestly feels like it sometimes when I'm doing searches. Um, that being said, that should show you the value of having a banner photo in and of itself is that you're already going to stand out amongst your peers. Two, um, look at those that do have it and get inspiration. Think, and then also use shells, but we can come back to from an from a standpoint of networking. Now you can start to network with people in your industry by doing some of those keywords. And yes, you should be networking with people even if they are doing this exact same thing, whether you're a job seeker, whether you're a career coach, LinkedIn strategist. We should always be learning from each other. So that is, that is where the power of the banner photo comes into play.
Yeah,
Um,
and don't worry if you're not sure how to like go out and find more people in your field or in your industry. We absolutely cover this as well in August and September of LinkedIn Rockstar. So don't you worry. We will be talking about finding the right people and engaging in networking till the cows come home. Is that still a saying people say? Is that
Well,
still used? I don't know.
back home in Missouri. So I've got a daughter now
I
living
didn't
in.
grow up with cows. I don't know why I'm saying it.
I parts of my life. I mean, my people are farmers. Um, so, as my mother used to say, though, um, Melanie, you were never meant to be from Missouri. So you were never meant to live on the farm. I have an appreciation for it, but that's all being, that's again, whole other conversation. I want to bring out something to what you just said, Shell, and also Jay mentioned this as well. Jay mentioned you have to wow people with your LinkedIn profile because your profile shows how you have interacted with others. So here's what I'm going to say. I don't even know that you have to wow them. You have to have information. You have to have the information. And here's where people, it's not so much the wow factor, it's keeping them on there. So just like we watch commercials, just we watch, reading a cover of a book or anything like that, we have to grab their attention. But if I'm looking to see if you say who you are and what you do, I'm looking for that information. So, folks, we have to have the information in the profile, or guess what happens? And this is to Jay's point. We move on. We move on to the next person.
Yeah,
because
what is
they
it?
got
What is
the
it like 2 or 3 seconds now to capture somebody's attention? It's
something.
very little.
It's little,
It used to be
and
like 79 seconds to capture somebody's attention on a resume. And now I think it's like a fraction of that. So,
oh, maybe it's literally you have seconds. And this is where, but your profile is so important when it comes to this. This is, it can be your game changer. I'll share a story, guys. My profile, we all joke that I procrastinate on updating my profile. It's no lie. I always say I'm a great doctor. I am a horrible patient. Yes, my profile is my lifeblood. It is, it is my lifeline. It should be updated consistently. I am not as great about it as Shell is. However, how did I land the contract with Udacity that allowed me to do 4 courses, to teach 4 online courses, and was probably in the 7 years that I've owned a business, one, never thought I would ever have this opportunity. Um, but how did I land that? I landed it because of my LinkedIn profile. I landed it because, and there's other pieces that help build that, but ultimately they found my LinkedIn profile. A recruiter reached out to me. He is doing a search, and shout out to Michael Gutierrez with Udacity, who I originally thought, like, I was like, is this spam? I literally thought that. I was like, this isn't real. They're gonna want money from me. I was looking for every loophole under the sun, folks. But how did they find me? They found me through LinkedIn. They found me through my profile. That is how he was sourcing LinkedIn professionals that had, from a career coaching standpoint, and that's how he found me. And he reached out to me. So
just a second on this.
yes,
Can we
absolutely.
deviate? For, still, I want to talk about I want to talk about this, but and it's profile adjacent, I promise. On your profile, there and this question comes up a lot when I'm working with clients. There's the open to work section. Having the open to work banner on versus having it being on but only visible to recruiters. Did I know you don't have the banner turned on your profile? When they found you, did you have it on in the
I do
background
have
for
it on in the
recruiters?
background. So I do have it on in the background.
Okay.
I'll just put my career coach hat on. I do. Well, I have to put my recruiter hat back on first before my career coach hat, and tell you that from my perspective of, yeah, like this is so I do know, like, from a recruiter's perspective, if you guys are faced with this debate, it's definitely, and maybe Meryl could go to look at my comments, but forget. I just commented on a post from her initial is Jihan, I think is her name, but I'll have to find the link for you. But she just did a post on this and I commented on it. So I'm like, Meryl, go look at my comments on my profile. Thank God for Meryl, because I can't multitask. And so, but one of the things that um, I know from being a recruiter, recruiters are not going to, like, recruiters actually love a good active candidate. I mean, they really do. A passive candidate sort of scares a recruiter because they're more of a wild card. Hiring managers do tend to like candidates that, quote unquote, aren't actively looking. It's a bias. I'm not saying it's something that is just inherent in all of us. What is the one that we all love? Things that we find that are not attainable, or we love things that are, or we're attracted to things that are. We love the things that are rare, that are unique, things of that nature, and um, that's kind of how hiring managers look. So I coach based on where the person's at, what the person's needs are. If you are in absolute need, absolutely use that green open to work banner. There is no shame to it. Here's the thing, and I made this comment the other day. It is a tool in your toolbox. And this goes back to your LinkedIn profile. Your LinkedIn profile is a tool in your toolbox for your job search goals as well as your career as a professional, and you should be using every single tool to your advantage. And I do have the open to work only for recruiters. I have it on the back end, so you don't see that. But yes, as a career coach and a LinkedIn strategist, I have that turned on. And I have it turned on saying for the types of opportunities that I would be potentially entertaining to attract people to my profile. Absolutely. And um, and everybody that is a consultant, a coach, we should all be using these tools to our advantage. And again, this is but
Yeah.
this is related to your LinkedIn profile. So,
It absolutely
but
is.
there is no
And
shame
so
on having it first and foremost, because some person, and so when you see those posts out there, and I'm just going to take a little because this is what irritates me. Please ask yourself first: is this post actually coming from a place of help, as a place of actual teaching you, or is it coming from a place of clickbait? Because a lot of people putting out these posts these days about, oh, you're desperate if you use the green banner. They don't care. They want the likes. They want the impressions. They want all of that. Okay. They don't care about helping you and educating you on what you should consider. It is a personal decision, just as if you do anything in your LinkedIn profile, that is a personal decision based on your goals and your personal brand. So you'll see everything is tied together. Personal branding needs to be stock, clear, direct. We take that and we're going to apply it here to the LinkedIn. Now, when I just realized is when we watch these things back on Opus clips, I'm always moving my hands. I get
nothing wrong
distracted
with
by my
that.
own hands nowadays because I'm more conscious of it. But yeah, but it is related to your profile. So yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about the banner. We've talked about the open to work. Where should we go
Let's talk a
next?
little bit about the headlines, because you talked about getting those keywords, understanding the keywords in your industry. I think there's a couple of trends that you don't need to have, and I'm just going to drop them there. I almost dropped my water, but I would have carried on, folks, as I would stress because my printer is down below where I would have dropped on. Um, so um, you don't need to have things like X Amazon, X Google, X things like that. Why? Because it's already in your profile down here. And you don't need, you're still going to, if I type in people with Google, then it's going to show, you're going to still show up. So you don't, make sure you're using, and I say this tip only because people are taking up space with this tip. And they're taking up keywords and that you could be using for other things that are more important. So, for example, don't like, I help people with, or actively looking for a position. Don't start your, I don't think any, I think our listeners are probably all pros with their headlines, but if you're the first time listener, and if you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing that. What is the first thing people see? Do the search, guys. Do the search looking for people again with the same titles that you have, same roles. What are some of the things that they're saying? Still be unique, still be direct and unique to yourself. Excuse me. But make it your own, make it your own skill sets, but also check out what other people are doing in their headlines. Again, 90%, I'm just throwing out 90% because it always feels like, they'll have just a title. Like one I saw the other day, strategic advisor.
So, what does that, of what?
Of what? Of what,
What
of,
are you advising?
right.
Where
But
do
the
you do
thing
this work?
is,
Who are you helping with this work?
but am
So
I
many
going to
questions.
come up in all of those searches that are, maybe that is a title that I'm looking for, but it could be in how many industries? So then again, if you're not speaking, if your profile isn't speaking to that industry that you're serving, are you to Jay's point earlier, are you wowing them? Are you keeping them on your profile? Again, it's like watching a 30-second commercial. Are we keeping them there? Are we keeping their attention? What
Yeah.
How are some ways that you coach, particularly when it comes to headlines?
Yeah. One of the biggest things for that I often tell clients is I want you to be clear, not clever. So as we're talking about like using keywords and maximizing the space, that's like 220 characters. I want you to think about like what is the language of your audience? Like, so it's okay to use your own words and say things how you say them, but I also want you to find the sweet spot of like how does your audience say them? So if you're in a job search, how are you seeing what you want to be doing represented in job postings? How are you representing what you want to be doing more of in job descriptions, and reflect some of that wording in your headline? If you're looking for more clients, or if you run a business and you sell a particular product or service, how is your audience, how are your clients, your people that would be buying from you or working with you, what is the wording that they would use to talk about your product or service? What is some of the wording of their pain points, of like things that you could then solve by coaching them or by offering this product or service? Use your words, but also use the words of your ICP, because if your wording does not match or resonate or land with your audience, it's going to go right over their head. They're going to keep going on because it's not wording that they can relate to. So I always want you to like be really clear, not clever. Like, if you think it's clever, maybe test it out with some of your people who you think it would be a good fit with, and ask them what their takeaway is. So you can certainly have clever things in your profile. I'm not telling you not to, but I want to make sure that it's clear to the audience that you want it to land with.
I think that's really important because sometimes we think something is really super catchy or we must include it. Like we get attached to these things that we really shouldn't have attachments to. Um, and so they're just words, and they're, words do have meaning, words do have power, of course, but we should not get overly attached to them because sometimes we can make sure that we can, get overly, and yes, no, Mr. Simpson is all good. He loves the sun. He loves to go in the back room at this hour because the sun's coming in, and he just likes to lay in the sun. So, but he's all good. The house is nice and cool. So, um, uh, yeah, there's a Mr. Simpson update in my random thought process. That's what you all get. But he's all good. And so yeah, he'll probably come out in about 30 minutes. So, but I think it's also important to not try to do something gimmicky as well because you think people are gonna like you want. I think people try to think, what can I do to grab their attention? These are the words that people are using. Okay, so these are the words that people are looking to find you. So I think that's one of the things that you have to remember is what are those words that ask. And if you are a job seeker, if you're regardless of whatever bucket you are, if you're a coach, if you're a entrepreneur, ask other people if you were to hire me, what keywords would you use? This is also where chat gpt and an AI tool can come into play. What are keywords that individuals in xyz field are using? I have a specialty in X, Y, and Z. What are some keywords that I could use in my LinkedIn profile headline? Get very specific with that prompt. so that people, so that it knows it's specifically you're trying to get something specific there. But it's a good way to brainstorm. It's a good way to get some ideas on words that maybe you had not thought of, but that should be there. So, and actually, my headline, that's an area that I do actually want to try to get updated fairly soon. Um, let's keep on going. It's only 6:30, which isn't a bad thing. That's a good thing. And so, um, but let's keep going and want to just try to give you a few tips and points. And while we're at the halfway mark, I do want to mention, if you guys are interested, please let us know. We do have a masterclass next Thursday. It goes from 6 o'clock to 7:30. So it's an extra, it's a 90-minute masterclass, but we're going to get in depth with you guys on your LinkedIn profiles. We're going to do some live work with you, but you'll walk away with everything you need to fully either have an updated LinkedIn optimized profile and or you lost, or just having having a fully updated optimized profile is really what you're going to walk away with. Using you get resource to the, like I said, I use a 22-point guide for all of my clients, which is something that we implement here, and we touch on those very exact points. I can tell you this, every single client that gets this from me is like, whoa. Like, people don't realize to the degree of, like, even what Shell and I do, of how much we get into your profile. Like, we get into, like, we are in the crevices, okay? We are in the we're behind the, pulling things behind, opening the curtains. We're looking underneath the bed and the table. We're looking for everything, okay, folks?
Yeah.
And
So
but
if
you'll
so
walk
if you
away
want
with
to get some if you
buckets.
want to get some love on your profile and some extra eyes, then highly recommend coming to the masterclass where we can work on it with you in real time.
Yeah, and I gotta, there it is. It's July 10th. There, I actually had the right date there. And so I'll keep that up for a little bit there as well. So you can actually just scan that QR code and it'll take you directly there. But it is, I'm not gonna lie, it's a steal. That's all I'm gonna say. Because you get two coaches and it really is a steal. But that being said, let's tackle the about section, folks. Actually, want to go back to a little fun fact that I recently have learned that I haven't shared. I don't even know, Shell and I haven't talked about this. Your location, again, these are little points. These are one of the 22 points.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
tackle this before we go to the about section. It's
yeah,
still part of that top heading area.
I could usually do this in my head, like literally. That's how many profiles we work on. Literally, I don't have to look at a profile. I can just break it down for you. But your location is a big factor in how people find you. It's a huge factor. And if you are fortunate to have a city that says, like, the greater metropolitan, use that,
You'll come up in more searches.
you're going to come up in more searches. Y'all can,
And why? Because you're casting a wider net as opposed to just listing a smaller town or area.
yes,
Now, don't take it to the extreme and just put United States because then it's way too broad. But if you do have a greater metropolitan or greater geographic region, and you'll see it for yourself if you're in that part of your profile, for connectivity issues, I'm not going to share my screen today to show you. Um, like I normally would. But when you're in that section of your profile at the top and you have your zip code that you put in, and then right below that it has your town or city that that zip code ties to. And if you click that drop down arrow, you'll see what the closest metropolitan area is. And so
use
we
that.
want you to switch to the greater metropolitan area so that you can cast that wider net. And this works whether you're in job search mode, whether you're looking for more clients, whether you're just, doing your thing on LinkedIn and you're not looking for either of those things. Like if you want to be more searchable, switch it to this.
Absolutely. I will say, if you are like me, I'm in Baltimore, and LinkedIn has a weird thing. Well, most people have a weird thing with the state of Maryland. It is a much bigger state than most people realize. Um, so they don't really break. They literally only have one major city in Maryland, which is Baltimore. I used out of the Washington D.C. metropolitan area, and I even debated if I wanted to like actually change. I did change it to Baltimore. It did get garner me the one of the top coaches in Baltimore for 2024. So I'm grateful I did that. But, you know, uh, Washington, D.C. is literally an hour away. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic. And even when I was recruiting, it was always something to kind of keep in mind. But yes, when you're using United States, for example, people are like, well, I want a remote role, or I work remote, or I work with clients all across the United States. Absolutely. So does Shell. Shell's bi-coastal, making her sound all fancy. Um,
Yeah, but I can still only have. I had this conversation with somebody earlier today. I can
yeah,
still only have
you
one
still only
geographic
have one.
location on my
Uh,
profile. So right now it still says New York City metropolitan area because that's where I've built up that base for myself. Now, could I easily switch it to Greater Seattle? Absolutely. But I
yeah,
don't have as much
absolutely.
of a foundation here yet for me
And
to
that
feel
was
comfortable
honestly a
doing it.
concern for when I changed mine to Baltimore, because my network, truthfully, the predominance is in Washington, D.C. I built a recruiting career in Washington, D.C. I've worked nationwide through a lot of my recruiting career, to be very honest with you. There are multiple points that I work nationwide with massive, like pharmaceutical biotech companies, all the big names. I worked on both coasts. My last company I was the internal recruiter and trainer for was we had five, 6 or 7 offices nationwide. Um, and so for me, actually changing it to Baltimore, I struggled with that a little bit because my base is Washington, D.C. I have a very strong centered base with so many of my contacts coming from that area. So I do, so I even personally struggle. There are times that I wonder, like, and actually it'd be a good experiment because I don't think it won't hurt me. I should actually just change it back just to see what happens. If I notice anything from it, true, because I'm in a place that I can kind of play around with it. So all of this being said, everyone's probably like listening, like, what the heck are these girls talking about? But look at your location. We don't talk about this enough, folks, but your location will determine how many searches. And yes, even if you're looking for remote, I'm not going to get into why you can't be in any state. It's tax implications. There's all these things for remote based work that people don't realize. But as a recruiter, I have parameters in which I know that I'm going to be looking for. I will search on those cities because it still will give me those. It will still give me a zone. If you have a very specific city that you've listed, go find list your major metropolitan area next to you. You will come up 10 times more in searches, 100%. So, location. I don't think
And
we've ever talked about location on a LinkedIn Live.
no, we haven't. And before another thing that's in that area before we head down to the about section is the industry selection.
Yeah,
Um, this nobody's ever going to see it visibly on your profile, like forward facing. It's something that works behind the scenes. It helps you to be more searchable. So similar to the geographic location, right? But like I think people overlook this a lot because it often is tied to your current job experience. Like whatever the company that you're currently working at has as their industry often just updates on your profile for you too when you put in that you work for that company. So I think people often overlook it, and especially if you're going out on your own or if you're looking for something else, if you recently got laid off or are changing jobs or even changing areas that you want to do more work in, it's worth taking a look at, like, where is the best industry for me to be found. How where This is another opportunity for you to come up in more searches. So there the as much as I use the search filters myself, I also like to think about, and again, I nerd out over this, Like, I also like to think about what are all the different ways that I can come up in a search. And so your headline full of keywords is one of those ways that you can become searchable. Your geographic location is another way that you can come up in searches. Your industry is another way that you can come up in searches. So start thinking about what are all the different pieces and how are they going to work together. Maybe you don't have to come up and search for all three of those things or all the things, but give yourself more chances, more opportunities to come up in multiple searches where you want to be found.
100%. And so we've got about 15 more minutes. And so we're going to tackle a little bit about the About section. If you guys have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We're happy to answer specific questions. I saw that Gregory mentioned that he had tweaked
His About section.
His About section. Okay. I agree with that tweak. I think that we often have to, people want to see quantifiable results, regardless of what you're doing or what your goal is. People want to see what is the impact you can make. And I think that's a good lead in into the About section is what is the impact you can make. And here's the thing, folks, I would suggest leading with that first and foremost. Oftentimes we start things off with, I am a, insert your title, with blank amount of years of experience. Remember that your About section, and go look at other people's profiles and see what other people have. Again, guess what? 90% of them are not more people have About sections, but what I will say is that most About sections are, you can tell, have been written by a copywriter for the company, a PR person, because we speak about ourselves in third person, as with no emotion or personality whatsoever. Or we copy and paste what we have on our resume and we walk away and we know nothing about that person. We know nothing new. We know nothing interesting. And again, this is your opportunity. This is real estate, folks. This is real estate. We got a question. Do you like to read summaries that are written with empty space paragraph or written like a blog post or a solid paragraph?
I think Melanie and I both agree. We like a little bit of white space.
I'm going to lead with you on this and then probably add a few things.
I think a lot of this is personal preference. But here's why I like to incorporate a little bit of white space. And you don't need a lot of white space, but I like to break up the text, like a sentence or two, space, space, another sentence or two, space, space. I want people to be able to easily latch on to the information that I'm presenting to them. And I feel like what happens is when it's in a really chunky paragraph, it's really hard to keep people's attention on reading just that paragraph because it just looks like such an overwhelming block of information. So I think breaking it up makes it easier for people to digest and absorb and see the information that really needs to be visible and stand out to them. So that's my 2 cents on leaving white space in there and breaking it up a little bit more.
If you hire me as a resume writer, I'm going to tell you white space is your friend. If you hire me as a LinkedIn coach, I'm going to tell you that white space is your friend. I'm also going to tell you, you do not have to format like we were taught in school as a standard paragraph. Okay, you can literally write one line and then hit space. Okay, like you can break it up to what Shell's point. And I showed you guys my phone, and this is the thing you need to check right now, folks. You need to go look at what your profile looks like on this device. Why? Because this is what people are looking at when they're looking at profiles too. We rely too much on thinking of like how I don't ever write LinkedIn profile. Like I never edit a profile not using the laptop, to be very honest with you, just because of the ease of use. But that ease of use is very different on how it shows up on this little thing. Okay. And we got to remember people are People are mobile now, okay? People are traveling, commuting, whatever is happening, doing two or three things at once. How does it look on your phone? How does it look on the app?
And before you get too far into thinking about that, guys, also take this with a grain of salt or sugar, whichever is better for you. Um, Remember, everybody's devices are different. So if you're working on your, and this isn't just for your about section, this could be for how your headline wraps on your device too, and other sections of visibility. Your computer screen may be way larger than my tiny little 13.5-inch monitor right now. Okay. Your phone may be this tiny little Pixel 5. Okay. I have small hands. I also like it to fit in my hand. But the point is, everybody's devices, whether it's the computer or mobile, is going to be a little bit different. So while yes, I absolutely agree with Melanie, I want you to go and check out and see how things look and wrap to make sure that it's digestible and for the most part nicely formatted on both your computer and your phone. Make sure that it's easy for people to read, especially on the phone, but don't get too caught up in like how the lines wrap or where they split or where you should put, like to
Yeah.
break the text, because what looks right on mine may look totally different on yours. I had a client the other day who was obsessing over how the text wrapped on his computer screen and on his phone. And I looked at it, I sent him a screenshot of how it looked on mine. And I was like, honestly, this is a little bit too much white space for me. You might want to dial it back. There's way too much breaks in between these lines on my phone. And he sent me a screenshot of how it looked on his. Totally different. His didn't have any spaces. It was because he couldn't see it on his end that he had hit the return button so many times. So just take that with a grain of salt and know that like it might look a little bit different, but I absolutely want you to look and see how it looks on your device. That is really important.
So Kat also asked us a question. Do we like
Emojis.
emojis? Well, if you've been with us for a while, you know I love emojis. I love a good emoji. There's actually a new one. It's not a new emoji, but I forget which it was, but I'll have to find it again. But it might. So the mind blown is my favorite emoji ever. Um, yeah, I have a favorite emoji. I just like the one with its brain being it's like mind blowing. So that's my favorite emoji, just FYI. Yes, I think so. Um, just as when we are accessorizing our clothing, and that sometimes we can get a little carried away, maybe take off one or two emojis. To the to that quote. From that standpoint, is look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what can I scale back? So I think emojis are great ways to break up that text and to be able to, if you want to make a point, having a strong emoji is a great way to draw attention there. Again, let's
Yeah.
not go, emoji crazy because we're still wanting to convey a message, but
And I still
um,
want you to be professional too. So I
yeah,
don't want you to overuse the emojis. Um, I like how I just kind of like merged my thought and Melanie's thought together,
it's okay.
because we do this. Um, if emojis are your thing, great, use them. It's also a great way of like, in addition to what Melanie said about like re-emphasizing your point or like driving that point home, it's a great way to personalize and show people like things that you care about, or like to relate, convey, or emote a more relatable. So I don't want you to be a robot. I want you to be a human that like, shows up authentic, feels, like you. Are your thing? Great. Yeah. I I absolutely have heard Lynn's take on it. I love what her approach to it. That being said, do what feels right for you. If emojis are your thing, use them. If they're not your thing, don't worry about them. It's a personal preference. Just, keep in mind, like, other people are seeing this too. So how is it being represented, and are you overdoing it?
Yeah, Lynn and I, well, Lynn Williams is
Yes.
a friend of mine, absolutely fellow coach. We actually do a LinkedIn Tech Clinic, for our members in the TLB club, and so we do that every the second Friday of every month. We just started doing that together. We both know, like, there's things that her and I don't agree on, where I don't want to say we don't agree on, we just do things slightly different. We do agree that it is good to have some of those, you know um, in terms of that. It's I think it's good to have them like in certain sections. Like if you're going to use a bullet point, I think an emoji is a better option, and I think an emoji can be used. I can have a whole like I can have a whole TED talk on emojis. Okay. um, So, but I think like even like so for example, accounting and finance. I recruited in accounting and finance. I have had clients in accounting and finance. I have clients that are in very like policy and legislative policy and very serious things that are very tight, buttoned up industries per se. That maybe they're not going to be industries, especially like accounting and finance, that are like overly emoji heavy. They just are, it's very boxed in, expectations. But again, one or two emojis to break it up is not going to also offend people. And they should be appropriate. So, like if it's a calculator or a plus sign, if you're, things like that are that are related to your industry. The lady dancing in her red dress, if you're in accounting and finance, unless you're a salsa dancer on the side, maybe doesn't make sense. I can take a conversation anywhere, folks. And yes, I
So
know
so
all
look,
of the emojis.
we're nearing the top of the hour, and we've covered a lot of things today. Just to kick off our profile optimization month and carry over from personal branding. We've talked about the banner. We've talked about the open to work. We've talked about your headline, the geographic location, industry selection. We've talked about did I say headline? Because if not,
Yes.
then I'm throwing that in there too. We've talked about your about section. There are, and this is just still the top portion of your profile. I knew we wouldn't get to it in the hour. We never do.
We
Um,
never have.
but if you want to hear more about all the other things that you can do on your profile, or if you want a little bit more guidance and feedback on how to make it your own, we will dive further into the experience section, the education section, the featured section, the skills section, the top skills section. Maybe we'll touch a little bit on the services section, depending on whether or not not everybody needs to use that. There's licenses, certifications, awards. There's courses, projects, volunteer. There's recommendations. There's so many different things that we didn't even get to scratch the surface on. So if you are curious about these other sections, come join us for the masterclass next week. Even if we don't, again, tackle all those sections, you'll walk away with that 22-point checklist for yourself so that you'll know what you can work on in each of these areas. And then if you want to come back 2 weeks from now, which I think is the 17th, we will be talking about what you have tried, what you've updated, what you still want to work on, what you need a little bit more help on, as far as your profile, and we will tackle more of your questions and a little bit more of the profile sections that we didn't get to address today. But let us know where you're at, because again, it's a lot of information. We know we can't possibly cover it in an hour. So we want to make sure that we answer your questions wherever you're at in your profile.
I'm just going to add two things. Literally, guys, our master class. Okay, I have more than two. Our master class for one master class is $77 for both of us to work with both of us on your profile. I promise you you're going to walk away with a lot of information. But here's one thing I will promise you, and this is something I'm very proud of myself on. But I give my clients that I work with privately at least three options of how to use the featured section. And I promise you this, I guarantee you, if for only that, you will walk away. I will give you specifically three ideas of how you can use different ways to approach your featured section that you're either not using right now, taking a guess there, or how we can improve your featured section, which is going to grab attention and is going to help you. So that is kind of one and a half things. Two is really Kat's fault because she asked the emoji question. I didn't prompt the question, but I just want to say Kat did ask the emoji question, so I felt obliged to answer fully on the
That
emojis.
was just a nice little. That was a nice little emoji on the icing on the cake.
Yes, so I was like, oh, that's opening a can of worms there, that emoji question. so, um, no, seriously, guys, we're super excited about the series, super excited to be. Next week, we'll have the masterclass, and we'll be back for our next LinkedIn Live for the month of July. And of course, have questions, start working on those profiles, start making changes, edits. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, on that note, we're going to wrap up. Everyone in the States, have an amazing, happy 4th of July. Be safe, be smart, and
Make good choices.
make
Be
good choices. You know, these are good
or
general
don't.
rules. Or don't. I mean, sometimes it's okay.
By the way, there's only water in this cup. I know it's a red solo cup. It might be a little bit misleading, but it's mint water.
So, but just, have fun, do whatever, do you, folks. So, on that note, we're going to wrap it up. Wish everybody a great time, and yeah, we will talk
Don't
to you
forget to
soon.
look up, look down, look left, look right, and connect with people who are in this space with you.
Absolutely, 100%. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.